Hey listeners, many brands have their own field sales team. If your brand does, this message is for you. Are you looking to improve the efficiency of your field sales reps and to have more transparency in the field sales and merchandising of your product? Wouldn't you love to keep and manage all the data in one place while juggling all the different orders, customers, and deliveries? Our partners at Simply Depot are here to help. Simply Depot is a super sales and merchandising platform designed to help emerging brands win independent stores. Their technology helps you find potential customers, it digitizes all ordering and merchandising activities, and it gets all the store insights you need to scale your business. To learn more, email info@simplydepot.com or visit them on the web, simplydepot.com. That's DEPO, or check the link in the show notes. Be sure to mention the Startup CPG podcast. Hey listeners, we all know how important it is to get dedicated face time with retail buyers. And now when you upgrade to a RangeMe Pro subscription, you get 3 in-person buyer meetings at an ECRM session. That's right, 3 20-minute private meetings with buyers in your category. Tell them your story, sample your products, and have a distraction-free conversation. And a pro tip, our Startup CPG community discount is the best deal around on RangeMe. You can get RangeMe Pro with the 3 meetings for $11.99. That's more than half off the regular annual rate. RangeMe Pro subscribers also get unlimited product listings, a dedicated customer success manager, VIP access to limited time campaigns, exclusive ongoing submission opportunities, and insights into which retailers are checking out your brand and products. To learn more, visit rangeme.com/startupcpg.
Since beforehand, I had other brands, so I was already familiar with New York City market. I had some relation with some of the stores, and also I was working with other distributors as a salesperson. I actually was selling Calypso lemonade. You probably heard about that lemonade. So I was one of the sales reps who was built in New York. So I already had some relationship with New York, but then we create like a whole strategy for New York City. We would send someone in Manhattan, someone in Queens, Bronx, and Brooklyn. So we'd split the whole territory. And the beauty of New York, it's you go one block, you have 4 stores, right? So in one day you can visit 20, 30 stores. And then obviously some stores, they didn't want to take a product right away. So it was just like a strategy. We'd constantly have to go back and remind them about the product. So that's how pretty much we did.
Hello CPGers! This episode with Namik Soltan from GNGR Labs is going to blow you away. It is a goldmine if you're thinking about launching your brand regionally, maybe even using your own sales and distribution team. Namik did just that. He launched in New York City and got into 400 stores using his own team to get the sales and traction he needed to move to a third-party distributor and then expand into other regions. It's a cool approach if you want to try to conserve your capital and build up momentum, and especially if you want to penetrate in one specific market before going broader. There are a lot of learnings here, especially we go into how to actually build and manage a sales and merchandising team on your own. I want to thank our partners for this episode, Simply Depot. They make the software that actually powers the field sales teams based off Namik's experience, and it helps you find customers, digitize orders and merchandising, and you can contact them at info@simplydepot.com. Check the show notes for more details and make sure to mention the Startup CPG podcast. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. We have a great guest today. We've got Namik Soltan, who is the founder and CEO of GNGR Labs. They specialize in wellness shots for health and wellness-minded consumers. They've got cold-pressed ginger shots for immunity, digestion, energy recovery, all those things that you need, and they are all natural and organic with no preservatives. Pretty interestingly, GNGR Labs scaled using their own sales and merchandising and even distribution team at the beginning, which is no easy task. That is a lot of stuff to manage when you're also trying to build your brand and find consumers. So I'm really excited to dig into that today, what it's really like. Namik is actually also a board member for Simply Depot, which is one of our partners. They provide the software that you need to manage all of that, which I think you're going to learn about why that's all really important. So, Namik, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show. I wonder if you could just start out by telling us a little bit about your CPG background, your origin story. How did you get into this crazy world?
Hi, Daniel. Thank you for having me. Started in CPG by pretty much myself. Started my first company back in 2012 when I was student in college, and had this idea. At the time, I didn't really know how difficult it was to build the consumer packaged goods. So then I started a few other companies after that. Unfortunately, they didn't work. Have to shut them down, and then third one, luckily, kind of took off. So idea for the ginger shot came from my mom recipe, which is ginger lemon honey paste that I use as a natural remedy against cold and flu. And it was summer 2019. Had this idea as an alternative to your kind of like traditional medication, especially when it comes to the cold and flu season. And you know it was summer 2019. We about to launch in 2020. COVID happened, and it was just kind of like a perfect time to launch this type of product. So yeah, that's a very quick story about my entrepreneurial journey.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, honestly, I don't know a ton about the wellness shots kind of industry. I know that a lot of people drink them. Like when I go and demo at Erewhon, for example, like I see people just coming in and cleaning the shelf off the shots, like grabbing as many as they can. That makes a lot of sense that during COVID that was, going nuts. What was it like when you were launching though? What was the category like at that point? Was it already kind of developed and you already had consumers looking for those kind of products a lot, or were you still building awareness about shots at that point? What was it like?
Yeah, I think the category was already established, and we weren't the first one on the market for sure. But I think there wasn't mainstream approach to like ginger shots or shots in general. I think the one of the reasons why we started, because when we bought a bunch of other ginger shots and we tried them, they were so kind of like weak. They weren't like spicy enough, I would say. And to me personally, the person who constantly drink this type of product, when I would spend $4 and drink like 2 ounces of coconut water, I was like, this is not. I shouldn't spend $4 on this. So, and that's why we created product that's like very very spicy. And I think that was kind of like success behind our company. I think what really happened during COVID is just that category just completely exploded. And um and i think and I think that was kind of the acceleration of the category, and now it's just pretty much like mainstream. You go to Walmart, they also sell ginger shot. You wouldn't think about this type of chain would sell them. So I think that's nowadays it's pretty established category, but I think there's still a lot of room to grow.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of funny how you describe it. Like if I'm paying that much and it's not, spicy enough, like almost like this should hurt a little more so that I, feel like it's working more. It's Desonex, like the shampoo, like it tingles. That's how you know it's working. Like it's spicy. That's how you know there's
Right.
some good stuff in there that's gonna help you out. That's pretty interesting. And so yeah, do you think that consumers like you're appealing mainly to consumers who like shots but then want it to be spicier, or do you think you're the first wellness shot that a lot of people in the category try, like you're bringing consumers into the category? Yeah, how do you think that works, the consumer journey?
So what I can say from New York City experience, because we mainly built our business within the tri-state area, and when we first started, I think that the shot category was more like exclusive to, I would say Manhattan, whereas you know people have money to spend, right? Because it's $4, $5 per shot. It's pretty expensive product. And when we first started, we would take this product to as many new neighborhood as possible. And I still remember when we would go to the store, they're like, "What is this?" They didn't even know what it is. So it was very something new and novel for them. And I think what we really did, we really expanded the category. We took this product to so many new neighborhoods that you wouldn't think, this type of clientele that would consume it. And I think what we really did, we expanded the category. We brought new customers to this category here in New York, and I think especially with TikTok, and there's a lot of videos with people making their own ginger shots. I think this product is just becoming almost like kombucha. Even if you compare the size of the category, which is a shot right now around 300 million, and then kombucha, I believe around 500 or 600 million. So they pretty much close. So, and I think our shot category continue to grow, you know, moving forward, because also a lot of consumers drink this product as a energy shot. So they would use this product more as your maybe alternative to your coffee or energy drinks or even like 5 hour energy.
It makes a lot of sense why a store would want it or a buyer. I know. I mean, I was just talking to the Sprouts buyer, and he was telling me for their dairy set, like the top item or one of the top items is a shot. And I mean, if you're talking about like how much money you can make per square inch on the shelf, like how are you going to beat that? A tiny little bottle that retails for a high price point. So I mean, once you kind of show it to them and they see it working, it seems like you would have a big open road ahead of you and a lot of shelf space they want to give you. So, and then just, man, I'm not a shot drinker. I'm like, although I spend so much time in CPG as a consumer, like I'm so basic. So that will be revealed in the way that I ask these questions. But like, who is the consumer exactly for these kind of shots, and when do they drink it? Maybe, and was that different during COVID? It was just like, yeah, they take the immunity stuff when they can get it, versus now, like, are they hungover and that's when they want it? Or is it like something they have in the morning or at the end of the day or with lunch? Like, what's going on with people in their shots?
So I think one thing about ginger is, like I mentioned before, our product it's very potent, right? So it has close to ounce of actual ginger juice, and when you drink ginger juice, it wakes you up. So it just feels like it's working. It gets your blood going, so you do feel the energy. It kind of like instant energy, without like caffeine, right? And based on kind of like feedbacks from customers, what we have learned, a lot of consumers drink this product as your morning shot when you go and start your day. You go to your bagel shop, grab a coffee, get the ginger shot. You feel like it's protecting you. Also, we got some interesting feedback. Some people drink them as a hangover recovery. They think it just helps them to recover faster. And I personally drink ginger shots. Just kind of like looking at myself, I my habit of taking ginger shot evolved over the years. Right now, I drink ginger shots right after like a heavy meal. For example, if I have cheeseburger, for example, or something that fried, I take the ginger shot. I really feel like it helps you to you know reduce the pain in your stomach. It just feels like if you have like bloating, right? You take the ginger shot, you feel right away within the 5-10 minutes. You feel like okay, it's working. And when
Yeah.
it's like a winter time, for example, when it's like super cold, right? You want to take ginger shots, something like warm, it just warms you up. So I think there's a lot of use cases. I wouldn't say people drink this product as your wellness, kind of like gives you wellness, or so I think that's kind of the main use cases. And some people mix them with water and they drink it during the day. So I would say that's kind of the main use cases.
Okay. Namik, in your future, I see you getting on counters at all McDonald's then
Yeah,
across the nation with a sign that's like, you will feel less crappy after your meal if you have this. Like,
yeah,
to
it's
fight
funny
off the
story.
bloating from your Big
Yeah,
Mac.
it's funny story. We have this like a small chain here of like a cheeseburger chain, and I actually was pitching them. I'm like, you have to have this, you have to have this, but they didn't take it. So maybe eventually I will convince them.
Yeah. All right. I'm just like imagining there's this like really famous movie with John Candy where he goes for the record with like I forget what he's eating, but I think it's like a huge steak or something, for like 20 people and he finishes it. I'm just imagining all of those chains. They should offer a complimentary ginger shot
100%.
after somebody goes for the gold on a or like sponsor the hot dog eating contest or something.
Yeah, that's a great
All
idea.
right. So, and then can you just give me an overview just of your total product line? Like how many different SKUs do you have? What are the flavors? I think you also launched in a can format as well.
Yeah, so currently we have 6 SKUs of shots. Essentially, two, it's an immunity shot. One, it's a digestive aid, comes with probiotics in them. Also, we have 2 SKUs. One, it's vitamin C booster, and second one, vitamin D booster, which vitamin C arrives from acerola cherry, and vitamin D also arrives from seaweed, which is 100% vegan and organic. And last, energy, we just launched about 2 weeks ago. Essentially, it's an energy shot. It's your ginger shot with caffeine from green tea and also lion mane, just helps you to focus. Also vitamin C, D, and zinc. So we have those 6 SKUs. Most of them contain ginger and turmeric, and we have one SKU which is just ginger lemon. Um, when it comes to RTD, well, last year we launched line of prebiotic beverages. Essentially, that's idea came from consumers because they would mix our ginger shot with sparkling water. So we thought, this kind of like a great idea to have different use cases. And we have 3 SKUs of our RTDs as well.
All right. That's pretty interesting. I'd probably this is maybe an out there question, but like, do people ever mix it with alcohol? Even, like, you just because you mentioned the sparkling water, like, are people using this instead of Red Bull with their vodka or anything like that?
Yeah, we have seen a lot of tags on Instagram when people make actually spicy margarita with our ginger shot. So essentially, you use, you can use like a quarter of the shot. It's kind of a great mixer too. Some people make mocktails. I think there's so many ways you can utilize ginger shots because it's so potent. So you can just put a little bit. You can have that spice in them too.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you for indulging me. I don't know why my mind always goes to alcohol, but okay. So the topic that I'm really interested to understand with you is around building your own, sales, field merchandising, kind of, and then even distribution in the early days, I think before you switched over to using a third party distributor. I'm a former beverage CEO as well. And I think, when we were trying to target a specific market to really penetrate, that's we did that math like, oh, should we work with third party distributors? Man, they're kind of hard also to get into and get them interested versus, oh, what would it look like to kind of build our team in the early days? And like, aside from just the cost benefit analysis of that, like that's going to take up all my time if I do that. And also, I've never done that before. So it'll be a lot to learn. Right. So I'm really interested just to dig into your journey on doing that kind of from the start. So can you maybe just like talk me through the kind of sales and distribution journey that you guys went on in the early days? How did you get started doing that? And, what took you to make certain decisions and for year one, year two, year three?
Sure. As I mentioned before, we launched right at time of COVID. It was like March, April. Obviously, as you remember, the whole country was like under lockdown, and at that time, most of the distributor they wouldn't even take any product into consideration because just no one was at the office, right? So that was kind of the major move for us, kind of like influenced us to actually go out there and start doing self distribution because we had the product. We're like, we got to get this product on the shelf. And also, when it comes to new brands, it just most of the kind of like a large distributor, they don't want to deal with the new brands when you don't have any presence on the market. So it's also really hard to get into distribution because you need to have some sort of like a sales or traction. You have 100 stores, 200 stores. So when we first started, it was like April of 2020. We had um, 3 people, 3 full-time salespeople. Essentially, they were our investors, our friends who also invested in the company, and we had my truck. So they would take orders. I would deliver them, and it's end up being pretty great strategy for us. I think it's also a time of COVID. There wasn't like a lot of brands launching into the market, so we were probably one of just few brands. So it was kind of like easy to get the product on the shelf, and and we did that for almost 8 months. I think within the 6 months we had about 300-400 buying stores who were buying like every couple of weeks. And I think once we had that uh, not traffic, but like footprint and the sales, obviously we were able to show the sales to the distributors. And oftentimes, it's the same stores that everyone work. Like there's 10 distributors, they're all visiting same stores. So also salespeople from other distributors, they were seeing our product everywhere, and and then I think like after 6 months, we already had so many distributors that they were reaching out to us, and then we actually have to make a decision with who we're gonna work. So,
And in those early days, then, was it you doing the sales and distribution? Did you hire people? How did that work?
all salespeople, they were our friends, and who also invested in the company. So it was like our friends, and also it was COVID, right? So everyone was out of work, so everyone had a lot of time. I had the experience in sales, so I was able to build the whole strategy, like intro deals and pricing and all that. And essentially, I trained my friends who were just going out there and pushing the product. And we also had our van, we bought this fridge. We were stocking everything in our office, so, and they were like, we would pack everything in my truck with coolers, and then we would deliver to the stores. And that's pretty much how we started. I mean, luckily to us, products started moving like right away. So we would get reorders. We would get reorders pretty much every 2 weeks. And I think first 12 months on the market, we made around $400,000, which is pretty big for like a brand new brand. And I think the fact that our product was moving, I was able to pay everyone because if product not moving, you're not getting reorders, and obviously you cannot pay anyone. And so that was kind of like the strategy how we started.
And how did you know even what stores to go to? You had like a list, or you just had everyone in specific areas, just kind of driving around and figuring out which stores to go and try to sell to? Or how did you have your target list?
Sure. So, since beforehand I had other brands, so I was already familiar with New York City market. I had some relation with some of the stores, and also I was working with other distributors, a salesperson. I actually was selling Calypso lemonade. Probably heard about that lemonade. So I was one of the sales reps who was building New York. So I already had some relationship with New York, but then we create like a whole strategy for New York City. We would send someone in Manhattan, someone in Queens, Bronx, and Brooklyn. So we'd split the whole territory. And the beauty of New York, it's you go one block, you have 4 stores, right? So in one day you can visit 20, 30 stores. And then obviously some stores, they didn't want to take a product right away, so it was just like a strategy. We'd constantly have to go back and remind them about the product. So that's how pretty much we did.
We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Have you ever reached out to a traditional recruiting agency to try to fill a role and then been shocked when you found out that they charge up to 30% of a first-year salary? That could be $50,000 or way more. That's so unaffordable for an early brand. But there's great news. I am thrilled to announce that Startup CPG now has an official recruiting partner that I think is the best fit for emerging brands. They are called Creative Alignments. They're a top-tier recruiter, and the best thing is that they work on an hourly model. It's called time-based recruiting. Often, you could fill a position with them for just 10 to 12% of a first-year salary, and if you work with them on multiple roles, you could save even more. They've worked with RX Bar, Cauli Power, Kodiak Cakes, Olipop, and so many other brands, and they are extremely well regarded within our Startup CPG Slack community. So if you're considering hiring, I really recommend reaching out to them for a free consultation. You can visit their website at creativealignments.com or email them directly. Our contact is frank.milianti, that's Milianti at creativealignments.com. And now back to the show. For you guys, you were building this distribution, the sales and distribution arm with your friends. And how did you even figure out where to send them? And how to manage their routes
Yeah,
and
so
all of that.
essentially,
You had some
when we first
experience, you
started,
kind
we're
of knew where to
using
send them, or how
Excel
did you
spreadsheet,
optimize
just
what they
putting
were
all
going
the
to do?
stores. When first month we only had 20, 30 stores, right? And then it was very easy to manage. And then we also used the routing map. So this way I can send salespeople to like a different locations. But then once we started having hundreds of stores, it just became super complicated. Especially when you have to track, you know, someone paid COD or someone didn't pay. Oftentimes you can deliver a product they won't pay you. So that was like you leave a lot of money out there. So we were using, I think when we first started, first probably month, we bought this invoice book from Staples. We'd write the orders right out of the, on this booklet. And then we became a little bit more sophisticated when we got the QuickBooks and started using actually invoicing and putting everyone into the system. And I think there was like 10 different apps we were using for this, for that, and communication. It was, and I think that's how our idea for Simply Deeper came out, that, there should be something that you can utilize in one place, and you can manage your sales team, you can manage your distribution, you can manage your merchandising team. So that's pretty much it's how it's all started.
So, yeah, what's that process then like? So, okay, I understand now. How do you manage like the territory and the stores that they're going to go to? What are they actually doing when they go into this store? Like they walk in, they've got invoice, whether it's the book from Staples or now you have software that can do it. So they're talking to the owner of the store. Hopefully, the owner's there when they go, which I know can be a problem. And then they're just like trying to take either sell in the product or just take orders and then kind of face up the product, like make it look good on shelf. And also, like, where were you getting the placement in the store in the early days?
Yeah, so usually the way process looks like, salespeople, they would go inside the store without no product, right? And they'll try to find the owner and introduce them product if it's like a new store, right? So they'll try to pitch them an idea. If they hesitant to take the product, maybe offer them some sort of deal, buy one get one free, something like that. So, and then once they place an order, they would send us an order, and then next day, or we will deliver this order to the store. Create the purchase order, create the invoice, and then deliver the product and collect the money. Hopefully, we can collect the money right away, because oftentimes they're like, "Oh, the owner not here," and then come back tomorrow, pick up the money. I think also the great thing, because we are delivering ourselves, we can put this product right on the shelf, because for the stores, it's also kind of like it's a good thing because it's less work for them, and that we were able to put the product next to kombucha and maybe some other shots and merchandise them right away, which was great, because oftentimes when you work with a distributor, they would just deliver the product, leave it there, and they will just go. So I think at first it's really important to get your product right on the shelf so it starts selling. It's not sitting at the warehouse for like, a couple of days. Obviously, once product it's already on the shelf, the salespeople they just go back, try to take a reorder. Obviously, they want to merchandise, put some sales materials on it, and that's pretty much how the process looked like at the beginning.
That's pretty interesting to hear. I've gone in and to convenience stores with a new product and tried to talk to them about it. And pretty much what all of them said is, great, if you want to leave some free product, I'll see if it sells. Like they're very happy to take, $40 worth of free product from you and sell it. And, either it sells through and they make some free money off of it, obviously they're going to mark it up, or it doesn't. And then who knows what they're going to do with it. And so, like, were you even having to give free cases for that? Or I know you mentioned kind of buy one, get one. Were they pretty open to that? Maybe because you guys were really confident that it was going to sell well and it was COVID and people were looking for those kind of products. How did you navigate that?
Yeah, so I think we quickly learned that giving away free product, it's not a good idea. I mean, of course, we gave away a lot of free product to some of the stores, but we quickly learned that it's better to do one and one, buy one, get one free, for example, because now they invested in your product. When you just give them product, they're like, oh, my cousin had the whole case. I'm like, I gave you to sell it, right? So, but when they pay, even if they pay like $10, for example, they're like, okay, I spent some money, I need to sell it. So, and we quickly learned that giving away free product, it's not a good idea, because like I said, they won't sell your product. They might just even forget, just drink it. So, but if there was like a really, really good store, we would give them free keys, for example. Obviously, once we were building a product. But when we first started, that we were doing deals, and we only had one SKU, so we only had one shot, one flavor. We started as a 2-in-1, and then if they were hesitant, we're like, okay, let's just do 1-in-1, buy one get one free, buy one get one free. And I think most of the people, they're like, it's like $30 for 2 cases, dollar unit. I'll sell it for 4. I make some money. So you also kind of have to tell them how much they would make, and then they would be open to buy it. And then obviously we need the follow-up deals. If you buy 5, get extra case. So that's how pretty much how we build it. Free, it sounds good, but unfortunately, it doesn't really work for the brand as well.
Okay, and then so once you were visiting, you were doing like every 2 weeks, kind of going back and checking into the store, and also were you seeing the competitors try to bury your product and take your shelf space?
Yeah, yeah. I think like 2 weeks. It's really good, like the timing wise, and obviously, yeah, it just happens all the time. Your product sells out, and then other people comes in, they would just push your product back, and to kind of like it's happened so many times. They would put their product into our boxes, to make it look like it's like some of the products looks like ours, and I think that's what comes down to merchandising. If you don't merchandise your product, and the when it comes to shots or any kind of juices, it's a refrigerated item, has 90 days shelf life, so it's pretty short shelf life. And then if your box sitting there, people don't see your product, obviously they're not going to buy it, right? Even if it's a good product. And then it expires, and then all of nerds like, oh, your product expired, doesn't sell. So it's very important to go back into the store, make sure you merchandise, especially for the first 3 months, or I would say 3 months probably. But then once your product becomes the people constantly buying your product, they will go there, they will search for your product, they will ask the owner, so but you have to build it to that level. So
Okay. So, and man, I've heard crazy stories about like sales guys in the field getting in fist fights and just like, all sorts of crazy stuff that happens. You probably have some stories, huh?
haven't had any fight with anyone, but definitely see some things, in the stores, and kind of like, and I think especially when New York, it's like a lot of independent stores, right? Anyone can walk into the store and just do whatever they want on the shelf. So I think that's kind of like you really need to stay on top of it.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad it's been safe for you guys out there. So, and then, you obviously had some really motivated people because they were investors in the business and they were your friends, so they were working hard. But inevitably, you're going to have some people who are better than others, and some people you need to try to improve their performance. So, what are you looking at in terms of metrics and stuff to see like, hey, who's doing a good job? Who do I need to try to help here to either increase their efficiency, or maybe try to teach them how to sell better, or maybe they need to merchandise better? What are you looking at as kind of the manager of that team that helps you make it work better?
Yeah, I think probably one of the most important thing is just if person is motivated, if person likes what they do. I think if person doesn't like what they do, it doesn't matter what you do, they're just not gonna perform well. So I think that initial motivation, it's very important. And if person also wants to learn, and maybe build himself within the category, and just start as a salesperson, become a VP. When we first started, we had 3 people, and then once we moved to the bigger distributor, we end up having only one person. And because just to manage our distribution, we obviously we were a startup, so we couldn't really pay a lot. So we were paying this person. Um, Salary wasn't big salary, but then we also offered some equity. The funny story, I remember when we first started, we actually were trying to hire a couple of people, and we also offered them some equity within the company. So they worked for us for like a day, and then they left. And kind of like, you never know, right? It's you start with a brand, and maybe it's a new brand, you don't really know, but if it's gonna take off or not. But our salesperson Daniel, he's been with us for 4 years. He earned some equity, and and he continuously growing within the company, so which is kind of great. And it's the same time, a person, they also taking chance on your brand, because you never know if brand's gonna take off or not. So that's
Yeah.
how I really see it.
That's pretty interesting, and I've heard the same thing even about like Liquid Death, for example. That I think in their hiring process, like I don't, maybe they don't even care so much about whether this is an experienced salesperson, but what they really do care about is the person's passion. Like how much do they care about this brand, and are they ambitious, driven, and that's how you know if they're just going to crush it for you. Because yeah, it's hard work being out in the field. It's so yeah, I mean, you're really going to need that. And even, man, I bet in New York, probably also you're dealing with like a lot of parking issues and getting a lot of parking tickets and
Yeah,
having to make friends with the parking attendants. Is that right?
100%. I mean, that's one of those things. It's unfortunately, you can leave your car for like 2 seconds and that's it. You got a ticket. So that's a part of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I know with Fresh Direct, anyways, they were just like, yeah, that's just an expense. We're going to get tickets. There's no way to have a truck here and not get
Yeah.
tickets. But I expect also, like, I mean, you do have some kind of inherent advantage if you have the branding on the truck and you're just driving kind of slowly around the city. You just have a moving billboard all over the place. So people get really familiar with the brand. And I think also maybe kind of interesting because your branding, it uses the like kind of Red Cross, like, Swiss thing, which I think probably immediately makes it feel more familiar to people, even if they don't know the brand yet. So that's pretty interesting to me. Another thing that I've heard from people is just around like hiring field salespeople. Like sometimes they can be very clever. I actually was just talking to a friend of mine who was like, "You won't believe this. I just hired a field salesperson full time, W-2, and then 2 weeks later found out they had three other full time jobs because they saw like they just were clearly just taking a bunch of people for a ride." Have you ever had those kind of situations or other things where you have to like really be careful or do certain kinds of background checks when you're hiring people just to make sure that they're in it with you?
Yeah, so I mean, luckily for us, when we first started, we had the same person for pretty much all 4 years. So we didn't really, brought in other people within the company. But right now, we've been, kind of like interviewing a lot of people. So obviously, going through a lot of interviews and learning about the people. And seems like some people seems like they have pretty steady um, experience with the brand. So, like for me personally, when I see someone work for the brand, for example, for a couple of years, which the way I see it, it's like it's a reliable person. But if someone jumps from one brand to another brand every 3 to 6 months, which is to me, that's kind of like a red flag for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, oftentimes some people, they want to work for the multiple brands, obviously, because they visiting like a same store. So
Yeah. I know. I mean, my feeling on it is when you have salespeople, like you want them to know how to get stuff done, right? And like it's even in like if you're talking about retail chains, like I don't know, sometimes the salesperson knows how to become friends with the buyer in a way, like oh hey, like the campus buyer is they're really looking for a company to support them on something that they want to do, and they really need like a bike or something that they can give away to students to do some kind of thing. It's like great if the sales rep can be like, "Oh yeah, I got you on that," and work with your marketing team. And then there also can be like an underside of it where like there are funny things happening, especially if it's cash business and like, things that you have to watch out for. So I hope you haven't experienced any like, too clever kind of stuff, but I think good for people to know that
yeah.
you have to keep a pretty close eye on it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's comes to anything. Like you run the business, you know that, right? If you work with agency or you work with subcontractors, it's you also have to manage them. You also have to give them directions. Unfortunately, most people they do what they do, but I think you really have to stay on top of things. It could be salesperson or your accountant or your, I don't know, ops. So I think just staying on top of it and just also giving them direction, it's important. And then one thing about salespeople, I think one of the best salespeople, it's with relationships, because as you probably know, in this business, it's all about relationships. It's all about who knows the buyer. And then if you know the buyer, it's easier to get your product on the shelf. So I think that's benefits when it comes to someone who has experience, which is great, right? Because they already have those relationships. But oftentimes you can just find someone brand new, who wants to get into industry and just get get into those stores and start building those relationships.
Yeah, got it. Okay, great. So then as you grew in distribution in the team, then you shifted a bit the model, right? Where, in the early days, you were doing your own distribution in addition to the sales and merchandising. And then I think later on, you decided to then work with a third party distributor. Can you tell me, like, when did you decide to do that? How did you come to that decision? And then, of course, how did that work for the business as you grew?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, when I first started first year in the business, so we already had about 300 to 400 stores, like stores that were personal product, and a lot of brands and salespeople, they already knew our brand. So we had a lot of distributors start reaching out to us, and we ultimately decided to work with Dora Naturals. It's a regional distributor. It just came to the point that we just realized that with one truck you cannot manage it so many stores because they all so far apart, and you really need like 10 trucks. And when your business becomes very, you know when you grow, right, there's just so many moving parts. And working with distributor, it's great because now we have about 1,200 stores. Obviously we would never be able to service those stores, and our distributor, they have 20 or 30 trucks, right? And especially when you start scaling and your product moves really fast, and you need that infrastructure, you need those salespeople. And essentially we did first pretty much like a year, almost a year, we did self distribution, and then we moved to working with DSD. And since then we've been working with them.
We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to announce that Startup CPG finally has an official Amazon agency partner. I know a lot of you are looking to Amazon as a great growth channel for this year and beyond, and Daybreak is the best agency that I've come across that will work with emerging brands. They have a really affordable retainer structure. It's a lot less than you'll find with other agencies that might charge you upwards of $5,000 a month, which is crazy. Based on recommendations from this community, I actually worked with Leon for my own brand and had an amazing experience. The sales grew very quickly. We started ranking really high on organic search results and really just capturing search terms in the category. I think he is an amazing fit for brands in this community, and I highly recommend reaching out to him for a chat. You can reach out to him at leon@daybreak.agency. That's Leon at Daybreak, DAYBREAK.agency. Make sure you mention us at Startup CPG so that you can get $600 of free design credits if you end up working with them. Good luck. And now back to the show. Okay, and so basically, were you covering then all of those 300 to 400 stores mainly with one truck?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so across like all the boroughs, even of New
Yep,
York, so you were just cutting up the routes, one person able to service it, hitting all of those, probably on like an every 2 or 4 weeks kind of cadence.
yep, yep.
Okay, that was a busy driver. Awesome. But that's really good to know that you can actually get to that level, even doing about 400K with one
Yep,
truck. Obviously, you got a lot working in your favor, right? Where it's like a smaller product with a higher price per ounce. So, like, they can fit more in the truck, and it's
exactly.
easier to carry. They're not like having to lift quite as much when they do it. But that's really helpful to hear. And then so when you moved then to the DSD for you guys from like let's say an economics standpoint and from a sales standpoint, like what were the differences that you saw? Like I've heard about Dora's Natural before. I'm sure they do a great job for you guys, but you also are going to lose a little bit of passion and control, right? Versus your own salesperson in there has equity in the business. Like they're going to face up the product, with just tons of passion. So like, yeah, from a, let's say, profitability standpoint, and then also just overall, like, sales and presence standpoint, what were the biggest differences you saw with the switch?
Yeah, I think when it comes to moving to distributor, most of the distributor they work with 30 to 35% margins, right? Obviously, when you do self-distribution, you kind of make good money, right? You pretty much you earn everything, and but then on the flip side, you have to pay for salespeople, you have to pay for truck, you have to pay for gas and tolls, and those things they also adds up, right? Your own warehouse, and then once you start moving thousands of units, that's become very complicated because now you need warehousing, right? So it's one of those things. It's once you become a big brand, I wouldn't say we're a big brand, but like I think once you become medium brand, it just become very complicated to manage all that. You need operational team, warehousing team, and so for us, yes, they earn their own margins, but with the way we build our uh, unit economics and with our co-packers, obviously we also profitable in that within the process. Obviously, when we first started, our cost of goods were very expensive, so we're able to with volumes, we were able to reduce our COGS, and I think just kind of like building the sales structure, your incentives, your intro deals, right? Because usually you are the one who's covering all that, so you kind of have to take everything into consideration, and then look at your bottom line. So
That's a really cool point around the incentives. Did you have any way that you did that when it was your own team around sales incentives? And then also, what do you think are the best ways to motivate a third party distributor with incentives?
yeah, I think when we first started, obviously we were getting everyone was getting incentives per case, for example. Uh, I think just one thing to mention, I think when it comes to distributors, you really have to work with them to build your brand. And I think once you build a brand and your product is selling, everyone's happy. And salespeople are happy because they sell your product, they make commission. And so when we first started with our distributor, we were moving a lot of products. So we still work with them every single day to get the product, to get the reorders. We'll take reorders, we'll send them this reorders. And obviously, we run incentives, yearly incentive for distributor salespeople. So, for example, when you have new product, you want to get this product quickly on the shelf, so you incentivize them for, I don't know, a couple of bucks per case. There could be like different structures, and I think that's what really worked for us. But we also work with distributor to really build a brand, and then I think after a couple of years, it's already became more kind of like the automatic process, and they will just go to the stores, they'll take a reorders, and that's how we pretty much did it.
Okay. And then how do you have your team structured to then work with them, right? Because I think you still will have some of your own salespeople, right, who know the brand so well and can work with the distributor. Like, do you just have a team mainly to manage them? Do they actually still visit stores with the distributor? How do you set it up?
Yeah, so we have person full time pretty much on the streets. They visit the stores, they go on ride-alongs with the salespeople. It's pretty much when you work with a salesperson within the that person route, and you visit stores on your own and then take orders, send those orders to your distributor, help them to kind of sell more, obviously. And I think also merchandise, you can do blitz. Blitz, it's pretty much when they will block off the whole week just for your team, and then you have a couple of salespeople. Pretty much, you go everywhere, and yeah, just I think working alongside with your distributor is very important. Oftentimes, I see when brands they just launched, let's say in New York, they don't have salespeople. Obviously, they're not going to get any traction. So you have to be out there on the ground with salespeople, with distributors, and obviously you also have to manage your distributor as well.
Interesting. Okay. So, maybe to summarize back, like let's say Namik is starting his business now. Let's say it's not during COVID, where that was a pretty unique scenario. Although, we're not totally back out of that. Like, I think we're in a new reality. So, in this new reality of how distribution works and how brands grow. If you're starting this business again from scratch, knowing everything that you know now, what's the go to market model you're going to go with? Are you going to start with then the exact way you did it with your own distribution in the early days to get that space and show the traction and get interest from distributors? Are you going to start with distributors immediately? I think it's a really important question because there are a lot of brands that bootstrap the way that you did with their own money, and they want to know what is the most efficient way to grow my brand, if I don't have millions of dollars with investment where I can just kind of like go big and spend a lot of marketing right away. So what do you think is your preferred model?
Well, I think for me, if I end up launching another brand, probably I'm gonna go with a distributor because I already have some relationship with them, and I kind of have attraction on the market, so it's kind of like easier for me. But I guess if I was starting out, like if I was like someone else who trying to start, I think probably the good way to start, maybe start working with small distributor. There's a lot of small distributor that can take your product right away, and then instead of you personally delivering your product, you would just go sell your product to the stores and send those orders to your distributor and let them deliver. Because not everyone has a minivan or your personal truck, or there's a different case scenarios, right? So I think just if you're a new brand and you just try to start, I think the good idea is just get your product on the shelf first and see if your product's selling or not. Because I think there's a lot of product out there, and unfortunately not all of them sells, and I personally experienced that. I had another two brands that didn't really work. And I think before you even go to a big distributor, unless you have a couple of $1 million, I think it's just good to get this product in 50 stores, 100 stores, and to really get the data if your product is moving or not. And then if it's not moving, maybe you need to change the packaging, maybe you need to change the formula, whatever you need to do. I think you should incubate this brand for at least a year to see what's working, what's not working. And then hopefully once you have the traction, you have hundreds of stores, you can show this data to the bigger distributor, you can show this data to investors, you can raise some money and then go with them. So that's how we do it.
I love that approach. That sounds really interesting. Are there any small distributors that you can call out that you think are good options for someone like that who doesn't have the benefit of all of your connections and experience, where people could be like, yeah, maybe in this market I could try with this kind of a distributor? Any that you can specifically name?
Yeah, I think there's one distributor called Gold Coast. I think they do a pretty good job in terms of they pretty open to get the new brands and incubate them. So I think that could be a good option. But there's a lot of other smaller distributors. I just don't know all the names, but I'm sure there's a lot of distributors. And also, just if you're in New York, for example, you can go to the store and you can ask them who they're working with, and they will tell you all the good guys and all the bad guys, whatever. So I think that's also a way you can really find out who would they prefer to work with, and then you can go reach out to this to that distributor.
Okay, great. And then last question, what's like the pay range that if you have your own people doing this kind of work that you should budget for, let's say just in New York?
Yeah, I think nowadays in New York it goes anywhere from 60 to 80,000 a year. So if you're getting like seasoned salesperson, so that's about the range. Plus, you also offer them some bonuses and incentives. You can also potentially find someone for maybe 50,000, for example, for something just new who's trying to break into the industry. And like I said, in our case, we offered them pay and also we gave them some equity. So that was kind of like how we structured this.
Okay, got it. And then maybe on top of that, you should budget for whatever the vehicle is, plus the maintenance of that vehicle, plus, I don't know, maybe $100 a week of gas, something like
Right.
that. If it's, New York where they're not going to move too fast, depends on the region. Any other big costs that people should know to budget for?
So usually it's either like all combined in just one salary that also covers mileage and then some other incentives. But I would say that would be probably range around 60 to
Okay.
80,000. It might go more than that, but Yeah, that would be the pretty much the range.
Amazing. And probably a lot of people are immediately like, oh, what if I go in on this with one other brand and we'll get that one person and they'll just do both of our brands. Probably you've thought about that. Like, is that a good approach? Or obviously, like, it can get very complicated. Like, well, what if only one brand's in a store? And like, I don't want them spending time on that route. That's not helping me, like any business partnership.
Yeah, I mean, we actually tried to work something like that, but also it comes down to the person. It's just like they might kind of like push one brand, not another brand. It might just become complicated, but at the same time, if you're a small brand, maybe you should have that actually. You instead of paying full salary, you can pay half, but at least you have someone there. But then there's also some salespeople, like merchandising company, you can potentially work with that they like 3-4 people, for example, and you just pay like a one flat salary for that. So that could be also an option.
Okay. Super interesting. Thank you, Namik. And just to close out here, then, Namik, what's a good way for people to follow along with you to, check you out on LinkedIn or just to get in touch with you
Yeah, I
other
think
ways? And,
LinkedIn would be probably the best. I'm trying to be pretty active on LinkedIn, and yeah, I think that would be
me too.
the best way to connect with me.
All right, great. Namik, thank you so much. We're just really interested to hear about your experience doing this. Makes a lot of sense why you guys then decided to launch Simply Depot as well, just to help out brands and companies who are trying to figure out that complicated web of how you manage all of that stuff. This makes a lot of sense, especially in a place like New York. So thank you for sharing all of this expertise. I think brands considering a journey like yours will find all of that insight and experience incredibly helpful. So thanks a lot for joining us on the podcast. I hope everybody listening got as much out of this as I did.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Hey, listeners. Many brands have their own field sales team. If your brand does, this message is for you. Are you looking to improve the efficiency of your field sales reps and have more transparency in the field sales and merchandising of your product? Wouldn't you love to keep and manage all the data in one place while juggling all the different orders, customers, and deliveries? Our partners at Simply Depot are here to help. Simply Depot is a super sales and merchandising platform designed to help emerging brands win independent stores. Their technology helps you find potential customers, it digitizes all ordering and merchandising activities, and it gets all the store insights you need to scale your business. To learn more, email info@simplydepot.com or visit them on the web, simplydepot.com. That's DEPO, or check the link in the show notes. Be sure to mention the Startup CPG podcast. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast today, it would really help us out if you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I am Daniel Scharff. I'm the host and founder of Startup CPG. Please feel free to reach out or add me on LinkedIn. If you're a potential sponsor that would like to appear on the podcast, please email partnerships@startupcpg.com. And reminder to all of you out there, we would love to have you join the community. You can sign up at our website, startupcpg.com, to learn about our webinars, events, and Slack channel. If you enjoyed today's music, you can check out my band. It's the Super Fantastics on Spotify Music. On behalf of the entire Startup CPG team, thank you so much for listening and your support. See you next time.